Do you want to know how to improve employee engagement in your workplace? Well, all you need to do is hand out some gift cards and have a pizza party and give them a couple keys and some company swag. No, of course not. So today we're going to talk about what you really need to do if you want to improve engagement in your workplace. So today we're going to talk about the realities of employee engagement and how to improve it. We're also going to talk about how you can improve it as a manager and as an organization and some simple actions that you can take today. The first thing that you need to understand is that employee engagement is going to always fluctuate. Because engagement, if you've seen any of my other videos, is not a result that we produce with one-off actions, but it's actually a status that we build and maintain. So I want you to imagine for a minute that all of your organizations, your department, your team, and even your individual goals are out there in the future. And there's a road leading towards them. Now, the pace in which we're traveling in towards accomplishing those goals and hitting milestones and producing results is dependent on our culture. And the strength of our culture is dependent on the conversations we're having. Because if you think about it, culture is actually a conversation that gets generated by the things that we talk about and the actions we take each day. And as soon as we stop having those conversations, well, the wheels start to wobble a little bit, they fall off, they go off the side, and then we start hitting a little pothole and we lose a wheel and we lose a person or we lose a department or we have a revolt and people protest or they go out and they strike, which we've seen a lot over the last couple of years. So if we want to actually improve engagement in organizations, we need to make sure we're having the right conversations at the right time with our people. So let's first talk about what we can do as organizations. I think one of the most telling statistics I saw in the last couple of years is that according to Gallup, employee engagement hit an all-time high in 2020. Now, what's kind of interesting is why did engagement hit an all-time high in 2020 during the heart of a global pandemic? Well, I have a couple thoughts on why that is. Well, one, all of us were having a shared experience. Well, everybody was having their own experience at home because if you had kids, it was a very different experience than if you didn't. And if you were alone, it's a very different experience because you were by yourself and you were isolated and all the parents wished they were isolated. At least I did. Anyway, that's a whole separate conversation. But here's the thing. During the pandemic, senior leaders were oftentimes giving regular updates about what was going on with the company, what they were going to do, how they were going to pivot. They were checking in with people. They were signaling and having conversations, and they were showing up to all of those meetings and all of those all staffs. And even I saw companies that were doing regular kind of podcasts that went out to their people every single day. And so what happened in 2020 is that senior leaders doubled down on communication with their people. And so people, of course, felt more seen. They felt more part of the narrative. There was more of this conversation as we're going to get through this together. And in doing that, that's when people were the most engaged since Gallup has been actually measuring an engagement. And so if you actually look at those core indicators of engagement, many times when people and senior leaders are regularly communicating with their people, that's when those numbers go up. And when they stop communicating with their people, well, what happens? Those numbers go back down. Now, I am going to put the caveat in here because many times people say, okay, we just need to communicate more. But if you don't pay fairly, if you don't have good benefits, if your working conditions aren't safe, it doesn't matter what you do, it's not going to make a difference. But if you want to really improve engagement within your organization from a senior leader, we need to show our senior leaders how to put the employees at the heart of the company's success. In the past, I was part of several best place to work studies where I was a judge in those, and I still do that to this day. But one of the things that always stands out is the companies that have the highest level of engagement, the senior leaders understand something really important. They understand that their success at a company is rooted in the success of their people. When their people feel valued and they have the experience where they're valued every day, then guess what? They offer more value to their customers. And that's why it's so critical that we are intentionally training our leaders how to put our employees at the core of our success in everything we do, that we're regularly communicating, that we're walking out and we're checking in with our people. One of my favorite all-time stories when I was doing my research on recognition is I talked to a guy who worked with a Delta ground crew member. And he shared, I said, what was the best acknowledgement? He goes, when the senior leaders of Delta came through Boston where I was working, I was outside working in the cold. They invited us all into the break room. They sat down with us and they just asked us about our work. He goes, that one gesture that a senior leader would sit down with me and talk with me had me feel like the company really cared for me as a person. So if you want to increase engagement from an organizational level, then work on training your senior leaders to have the conversations that matter most to their people. Have them show up in meetings, have them visit other departments, have them just call departments and attend their meetings and say, hey, by the way, I'm not here because something's wrong. I'm here because I want to see the amazing work you're doing. Tell me what you're working on right now and invite other people to share. And you'll be blown away at how much of an impact that simple gesture makes. So how do we improve engagement as a manager? Well, we need to have more conversations with our people. Now, many managers say, I'm too busy to have these conversations. Well, how much time and energy does it take to replace an employee who left? You're too busy not to have these conversations. Now, to build on the story that I told in the last section about the Delta ground crew member, he also shared when I interviewed him about his manager. And I go, what makes a great manager? What has you feel valued? And he goes, you know what? My manager doesn't come out and just criticize me for something I'm doing wrong. He comes out and works with me to get it right. So if you have an employee who's performing well, you want to recognize and appreciate them for doing so. And if they're making a mistake, you want to redirect them. If you've ever read the book, The 1 Minute Manager, there's a reason why 15 million copies of that book were shared. There was very simple points. One, give the person clear goals of what they need to do and make sure that it's really clear and they can see it on one page. Praise them for what they're doing right and then redirect them for what they're doing wrong. That's the core of it, but the challenge is many leaders neglect to just do that. So make it really clear what you need your people to do, and if you're not sure, take a minute today, write down, what do you actually want to see? What are the behaviors that matter most on your team that people can do? So if we deliver on those basic things, it's going to make the biggest difference. Now back to that example from the Delta ground crew member, when I asked him what makes a great manager, he goes, you know what my manager does that I really value? He goes, when I make a mistake, he tells me I made the mistake, and then he stands with me to get it right. When we're backing up and suitcases are piling up on the tarmac, he runs out and gets out there and does the work with me. He doesn't just watch me sink. He comes out and shows me how to swim and helps me swim better. So if you want to be the great leader, understand what's going on with your people, understand what's on their workload or on their to-do list, help move things off of it so that they can focus on the work that matters most, and then check in with them regularly of what they need for support to be able to stay at their best. Because your job as a leader is not just to pile work on, but is to help them be successful in doing their best work. So if you really want to improve engagement in your workplace, start by communicating more. Not just the things that are going wrong, but the things that are going right. And one of the best ways to communicate is not what you say to other people, but what you invite them to say to you. Ask questions, walk around, check in with people. There's a reason why everybody shares this simple action and why you should take it. Next, go out and recognize somebody. Share how much you value them. Don't just be generic, and if you don't know what to recognize them for, just thank them for being a part of your company. And also ask them questions about what they're proud of and then recognize them for whatever they share. And lastly, just make an effort to ask them, what's one thing I could do to make your experience here better? And then when you can, take action on doing it. And if you do those simple things, then guess what? You're going to have better conversations. And like I shared in the beginning, culture is a conversation. So let's just make sure we're having the right ones. I'm Chris Littlefield from Beyond Thank You, and I hope you found this video helpful. And if you did, make sure you check out some of the other ones on this channel. And also go to my website, beyondthankyou.com, sign up for my newsletter where I share regular tips and resources to help make building a culture and having the right conversations easier.